Hi, it's Gadget UK here again, back with the Amiga 2000. Going to do some upgrades and things to this, so that's what we're going to cover in this video. So the first mod I've done is to fit, as you can see, a fan here. It just connects to the Molex connectors here. This is one I had on my PC years gone by, actually, an old PC. So you can see I'd previously heat shrunk to an extender here, you know, so I've got additional Molex connectors. That's always nice to have within a system. This might get moved depending on what we put inside the slots and things here. So these stickers they stuck on there, there's no protective surface on it. It wears off really easily. And I want to replace it, I think, but I'd like to try and leave it in place so that it's there, you can revert back to it, but at the same time protect it. So I'm going to stick a piece of tape over there. I'll stick it, you know, I'll overhang it on the top side there, and then I'll get a flat ruler and very, very carefully just use a craft knife and just slice very, very, very carefully without marking the case, without damaging the label, and I should have a piece of tape over that just to protect that. But ultimately I'm then going to stick this over the top of it. I've done a similar sort of thing with my ST and my STE, actually, with the 4160 STE labels you can get for those, you know, actually from Atari, the original ones from the factory, they just never were used. So that I've got the original ones under there, I can just pull, you know, carefully pull it off, and you can actually reuse the thing afterwards. The sticky stuff still works on it generally. You know, if you stick this to a tape surface, generally you'll find if you're careful it'll peel off and you'll still have the tape below it. That's the nice thing with doing it that way, but it will stay stuck on. I just think it's going to look so much better with a nice chromed logo like that. And the nice thing is this came from Poland, and the 2000 actually came from Poland. Yeah, so you can see what I mean there. I've just put the tape on and pressed it from the centre outwards like that, so we've got no air bubbles in it. It's super well adhered to the thing there. It's protecting that. You know, once I remove the edges of that, that's glossy, you know, you can't wipe over it and stuff, because that is the problem, that the bottom half's been worn off as someone's wiped it. I didn't do that because I noticed straight away that this is one of the paper ones. I think some of these are different in terms of how they are printed, you know, what they're printed on, the materials. But just using a craft knife now, I can just get into the very corners here very carefully and slice that tape off, and then we can stick the other sticker on top. And I'll see if I can show you some of this. What I've been doing is just start from the left hand side here, very carefully just drag the craft knife around the circumference here, you know, around the outside, just very gently. Don't, you know, you don't want to gouge the plastic or slip off and gouge the logo, you know, the sticker, but just carefully like this, just super carefully. Go over it a few times just to make sure you've gone deep enough and you've actually cut it. Spend more time on the corners, going carefully in a sort of, you know, curved sort of angle around the corners. This is all we need to do. And I'll see if I can show you this, just carefully peeling it back now. It's coming away. Yeah, there you go, totally perfect. Yeah, so there you go. You cannot see the tape on there at all, but it's glossy. That's fantastic. I've done a really good job of that. No worries. So yeah, I feel more comfortable sticking this on there now, because I can always revert back to that, and that's got some protection as well. That's looking sweet. But the next thing I want to do is fit this little mod here that goes under one of the CIA chips, actually. Now it says U7, it's probably not going to be U7 on this revision board, it'll be a different chip number. So I need to go and look at the schematics to see which of the CIAs handles the keyboard stuff. But the idea is to plug this in. You can plug a little dongle, you know, USB dongle into here, one that gives me Bluetooth keyboard support, and I can just use this little mini Sandberg. It's brand new, never used it. It's always been in the box there, sat there waiting for me to find something to use this with. It was a prize, competition prize many years ago. But this hopefully should work wirelessly. If it does, that's great. I'm not going to even bother looking for a proper keyboard for this, because it's, you know, £200 a pop, or well, between £100 and £200. Generally, if you buy one at £100, it's going to need a lot doing to it. But yeah, this will just give me a nice solution to the keyboard situation. I did show in a previous video you can use an A500 keyboard, but I haven't got a shell for this. You know, at some point I'm hoping to buy an enclosure from Stephen Jones, is it? you know, the Checkmate chap there, when he offers his cases and shells and things out to the general public to purchase. So in order to get access to the chips and things, I'm going to need to remove the drive bay here, so I'll have to, you know, unscrew the screws from the back of the power supply, disconnect the power supply, and then I can just lift this whole piece of the chassis out. So I was hoping it was not going to be this one here, but that's the right one actually. It is U300. But the good thing is the board sits this way, so this jumper shouldn't be in the way. I think it'll just about fit. Maybe that resistor pack could be an issue, I don't know. The other thing I was considering doing is sticking it inside another socket. The reason being is because you've got round pins, talked about this before, round pins, you know, it widens the socket's holes there. So if we plugged it into that, then plug it in there, I'm just not sure whether it's going to be too high when the chip's in there underneath the power supply. But I will try that first and just see whether I can make it fit. Yeah, as you can see, that's just going to just fit there. So I've raised it up by a socket's worth of height. And I needed to do that anyway, because can you see the Sandberg adapter here? It's just on top of the hybrid, literally there's about a millimetre clearance between that and the hybrid, but there's also a couple of millimetres clearance on the top of there. It's very close, but I think that'll be okay, and it, you know, it fits in there really snug. This wire here, just leave that floating just there for the moment. What we'll do is solder my own wire onto there, heat shrink it, and that needs to go to the reset pin somewhere, so I need to find that. That's designed to hook onto the keyboard connector on a 500 actually, or a 500 plus, but there's no reason why this shouldn't work in here. So we need to switch the keyboard on. Oh yeah, LEDs lit there. Sorry, that was off camera there. Those LEDs just flashed. So if we go into, let's do keyboard test, so press F2. Oh yes. So let's try F1, F2, F3, F4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll just go through this. So after some exhaustive key pressing there, you can see that's what we're left with. So we have got a couple of keys missing. You know, we can't get the Amiga key down here, the right hand shift, that little symbol character, the help key, and those two brackets. But you know what, I can live with that. For the majority of games, you're not going to have a problem there. It's you know, flight sims and things might use some of these the things here. Help might be using the occasional game. Maybe the right shift. I think Pinball Dreams uses that, doesn't it? But you can use the joystick anyway, so it's not a problem. But I think that's very good. It was like 20 quid or something, like £25, that little board. So I think that's fantastic. You know, just being able to use a wireless keyboard like this now is just brilliant. And I think where it says left control and left Amiga, so we did control and the Windows key. I think, is it the Windows key? Oh, it's that one. It's the Alt. Yeah, there we go. We've gone back. So yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. So we'll do a memory test all. Sweet. So I did a little bit of an investigation. This goes to the reset pin 3 on the connector there of the keyboard, you know, on a 500. Now I've done some connectivity tests. I assumed that was going to go to Gary, and it does. It goes to pin 5 of Gary. So I just need to extend that wire so that it reaches from here to here. Pin 5, sorry, down here, pin 5 of Gary. I'm going to use one of these little clips here, and I'll be able to, you know, sneak it on there. I'll label up the cable, clip it on like that, and you know, job's a good one. So I just need the cable sort of that length, and we should be done. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to solder onto that little eyelet actually, you know, that's designed to go over the 500 keyboard fit in there, because they can just reuse it. If at any point I decide to take this out and put this in a 500, I will be able to do that. So I've got a piece of heat shrink tubing over here. I'm just going to hold that over the end there and join the two up. That should do. I'll just make sure that that's a good reliable join. It is. Slide the new heat shrink over there. As I say, I can always cut that off, and we can unblock the little circle hole there, you know, that eyelet, and reuse it. That tends to be the way I tend to do things. I like to make things kind of revertible, because I could take this wire off and just replace the wire entirely, or work out where this wire goes to and solder this wire as well as the other one, and heat shrink over the end of the eyelet just to stop it from shorting or anything. There's different ways of achieving the same thing. And again, hot air is useful on things like this because you can heat shrink tubing really cleanly and tightly just using hot air. But you know what, you can use the neck of the iron. I'll just get a little bits of solder off there in a minute by giving it a bit of a rub down. Yeah, shrinking my skin as well, I think. Yeah, when you get little bits of solder, it just comes off like that. You can just rub it and it comes off and looks nice and clean. So that's that bit secure. The only other thing we need to do now is pull that off there, slide that through there. Let me think about this. What I tend to do with this usually is tie a knot. I think we'll do that actually, just so that it doesn't get pulled off. So tie a little knot here like this, fairly near the end. Like that. And then when you pull this up, so let's just tighten that knot a little bit so that it fits into the thing. Yeah, so you can see that knot is in there now, which just acts as a strain relief. You know, there's a bit of free play on this, that wire will be tucked inside it. So all we need to do now is solder this thing. It's a bit bent now actually. We'll try and add a bit of solder on this side here. Yeah, you can solder onto that copper bit, you can't solder on there. You could if you scratched it, but anyway, that should do the job. And we'll tin up with that. In fact, we probably don't need that much actually. I'm going to trim this down a little bit because it doesn't need to be quite so long. We'll have way too much you know, wire folded up inside it if I'm not careful. There's probably an ideal distance for that knot between the end of the wire and the knot, if you see what I mean. But I think that'll be okay. I'm just going off eye here. Now I'll just move the helping hands in here because I'm just going to carefully grab the end of that. I'm going to try and see if I can just shove this through into that actually, like that. Should do. So then if we carefully slide this up here, pull our knot in. Yeah, it's alright that. I just pulled it to pieces, so I had to just carefully reassemble the bit that goes in the middle of this plastic piece here. But as you can see, that's okay now. It's nice and snug, it's not going to come out. We've got a cable relief in there just to stop the wire from coming off. So I think we're going to plug that back in, connect that up to pin 5. I'll stick a label on that before I forget. And we'll see if we can reset the Amiga from the keyboard as well. So I'll do Control-Alt-Delete, that's how you can do it on this. Can you see that? Reset. Fantastic. You can also do the equivalent of Control Amiga, but I don't know what the right-hand Amiga key is on this keyboard. So a bit of an update, this keyboard is working perfectly. One of the issues is, I'll show you, I've fitted a flash ROM chip to this machine. There's one that's toggleable. It was Solid Core that created it and stuff. I think I've covered it in another video, so I'm not going to go into it too much in this video, but the way it works is you do a reset, you hold reset for, I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds, and then it changes to the next ROM in the flash ROM. There are 4 ROMs in there. I've got 1.2, I might be wrong, 1.3, 206, sorry, 205 with a SCSI driver or something on there to allow booting from IDE disks and things, and 3.1, a customised version of that with some bug fixes and things. But I can't do reset. If you do reset on here, even if you hold the things down, it resets the system, but it's, you know, it sort of resets it and then it boots. Even though you're holding it down, it doesn't stay in a reset. So I can't change over the ROM. So that's the first issue. A quick update is if you've got the use the function key here and press this key, you get the help key. So that's an extra key that I found that I can get on this keyboard. But you know, we are missing certainly the right Amiga key here. I can't get it on this keyboard. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount a little external USB socket into one of the ports, you know, one of the connections on the back there, the back plane where your slots and things go, because I'm not going to be using all of them, so we'll use one of the ones on the inside there. I've got a RAM module in here, I'll show you in a minute actually. That's another upgrade within this video, so we'll talk about that as well. Yeah, so what I was thinking is having that, instead of having that little USB dongle permanently inside it, I'll stick a little USB extender and, you know, feed it out to the back plane. So for example, we'll have a couple of USB ports on the back there. Only one of them is going to be working, but you never know, I might find some other way to use the other one as well. That'll just mean I can stick the dongle in the back, or I can plug in a proper USB keyboard. And something was niggling the back of my memory, thinking I'm sure I saw a similar video on a 1200, and I think it was one that Miss Mad Lemon did, and she used an Apple keyboard actually, and I thought, those are really nice actually. So I haven't got one of those, so I've ordered an Apple keyboard, and we'll try that. It just looks so much sexier and stuff, and it just means that I've got the best of both worlds then. I can either plug the dongle in the back if I want to use a wireless keyboard, or I can plug in the Apple keyboard, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the Apple keyboard has at least got the right-hand Amiga key. If it has, then I'm happy. I'm totally happy, because I think what we're missing, a couple of brackets or something that I would never use anyway. So anyway, we'll give that a try. So looking through some of my other stuff in the loft, I found my Commodore external floppy drive here. So this has not had any use in a very long time. So this will, I think I'll do this in a separate video. I'll do a tear down of it and clean up and restore. But I also found these. Now these I purchased from eBay. I did not do this. It's horrific. It really is. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I saw these at £1 each or something. I thought, I'm going to have to buy those. I feel sorry for them, you know, let's reclaim the chips at least. So the next thing I want to fit inside there is an accelerator card. I previously mentioned that I was going to stick one of Stephen Leary's Terrible Fire accelerators, and that's what I've gone for. This was kindly donated from 8-Bit Dreams, known as aka DJ Cook, over on Amiga. A fantastic guy, he really is. I approached him to buy one of these, and he was good enough to just send it me. He said, "What's your address? I'll send you one." Because well, he obviously gets some small value out of the channel. I'm really highly appreciative of the amount of effort and money and everything that it would have cost him to, the time to assemble this, and the cost of the parts and the cost of the shipping. Look at that. That is absolutely fantastic. Lovely job. So I don't know a massive amount about the 534. I know it's got only 4 meg on here, but you've seen I've already you haven't seen, I haven't shown you yet. I'll show you that bit in a minute, but we've got 8 meg in there of Zorro 2. I'll show you the board, which should mean I've got more than enough for WHD load. That was the idea. But the really nice thing with this, well, I say really nice, it is and it isn't. It is in the sense that you've got the FPU, the floating point coprocessor here. That's the nice bit, but as Stephen said a number of times, nothing really uses it. It's just a nice to have, If you're going to use like Lightwave and some drawing or CAD stuff, 3D rendering, professional software, yeah, some of that stuff might use the FPU, but games don't use it, I don't think, and I don't think demos use it. I don't think there's anything else uses it really. You can benchmark it and feel really positive that you've got an FPU, but you're probably never going to use it. So that's one reason on the later accelerators that this has been dropped, because you could use that space for something else, even more RAM. So there is a 536 in development that does, lacks the coprocessor, the FPU, but it has 64 meg of RAM. So that would be even better to put into this. And I'll probably purchase one of those as soon as those become available. But nevertheless, I think this is really good. This is really sweet, and it's going to give me 68030. I'm going to take the CPU off my CD32 accelerator just because this one is it's not the EC version. I think it's got the MMU, so I'd like to have an MMU in this 2000, so that it's kind of got a bit of everything. I've got an MMU, it'll be 50 megahertz. We'll have more than 8 meg of RAM because we've got the 8 meg on the board. We'll have the coprocessor, compact flash hard disk. I've got a hard disk interface I'll plug into here in a minute. I'm not sure I'm going to secure that. I might, I don't know, I'll have a think, I'm not really sure. It might be okay just floating in the case if I encapsulate it in something, I'm not sure. So I'm not really using this in the CD32, this is the thing, my plan is to, the 2000 to be my main working machine. Most of the time I tend to use the 1200 as my main working machine, but yeah, I'm going to give the 1200 a break. I might even do some work on the 1200. Maybe we'll recap it in a future video because it hasn't been done. I'm just using this PGA extractor here to just gradually lift it out. You know, you've got to do a little bit on each side until you can see that's coming off, until eventually it's lifted out. So I've got my CPU in there, pin 1 down here. I've added my compact flash card. Just for the moment I'm borrowing the one out of the CD32. I've got another one of these little boards here. It's one of the ones that I showed in that CD32 video where I removed the transistors from here. I know they work, so yeah, I mean it should work with this. I think there have been some problems trying to get certain compact flash adapters working with these accelerators, but I'm sure that's all it is. And the amazing thing is, I was going to go and either look for one of these or create one myself, because I imagined it was going to be one of the relocators you get with this, where you remove this 68000 and you plug an adapter in and it sort of relocates it to allow you to stick it somewhere underneath the chassis there. But I think that would have interfered with the metalwork. And the nice thing is Kip has already created one of these. And 8-Bit Dreams, you know, DJ Cook has been nice enough to include this as well, which is fantastic. You know, so this is designed to go into the CPU slot down here. You know, so you would have had one of the typically one of the Commodore Accelerator boards in there to give you an 020 or an 030, and you can plug straight to that, which is fantastic, absolutely amazing. So it's got pin markings here. It says 86, 1, and it says here back of A2000. So it's got to go this way, I think. That's a bit weird, but it would seem to need to go this way. Not what I expected. I thought it might have gone the other way, but anyway, nevertheless, let's try and get that in. Yeah, there we go. It's in there. So let's give it a try. So I'll admit I had to do a fair bit of tinkering actually. I need to reassemble this. You can see it's sort of partially assembled at the moment. I had to use obviously 3.1. Now I had some problems. I swapped to the other motherboard and I couldn't get 3.1 booting, although one thing I've noticed is you get a black screen for an extended amount of time on this system. So when I put it all back into this thing to test it here, it was doing the same sort of thing, just a black screen. I thought, oh, it's not working again. And it took ages, I don't know, 30 or 40 seconds or something, and then it booted up to the compact flash card without an issue. So I think it probably all works on the other board. I'll test that in a bit. But you'll see, well, you can just about see, I had to remove the CPU. That was something that I didn't expect actually. I thought you could disable these via the slots and leave the existing processor on there, but it seems not. It seems like you've got to remove the processor. But as you can see, booted into Workbench here, and 12 meg free there, so it's picked up the additional 4 meg from the TF534, and it's also got the 8 meg Zorro 2 RAM. So I've got a twin USB port here, measured the pin out here, just looking at the profile of the slot there, and measuring connectivity on the pins you can see on the top side, from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and measured the colours, you know. So, and they're consistent between these. It goes black is ground, red is +5, and then you've got the receive and transmit, you know, the data. So it might be receive, transmit, and clock or something. I can remember what USB passes. It's been that long since I looked at it. But as you can see, I've got an old iPhone cable here, a couple of pieces of heat shrink there, ready to slide over. Heat shrink on the pin header there. One of the pins has slipped a bit further through. That's one of the problems you can have with this. Pin header really is best on a PCB, so I'll just straighten those out somewhat. It'll hold in place a bit better when I get the heat shrink slid into place, but all I'm going to do now is just move the heat shrink right to the very bottom of these connections here. So I've pulled the pin out again now. So all I'm going to do now is slide the heat shrink up there, heat that up to shrink that, and then do these two bits here. I've got a wider piece to go right over the thing like that there. It might not shrink very well, no idea. We'll give it a try. The worst case is just stick a bit of tape around it. But then the idea is this plugs into the PCB here, and this will connect up there, and on the back of the 2000 we'll have a USB port for the keyboard. There's a second USB port on here. Could always use that for some other USB type mod. There are things you can get that use a USB port, so yeah, I might revisit that. So final things I did here before connecting this up is just measure the voltages on here. You know, the red should be 5 volts and the black should be ground, and that's correct. But it still wasn't working. And what I think I've done is I must have mixed the green and the white around. The colours of the white wire I was using there, they did have green and white, but they were the opposite way around. They're not what you know, the way around they are here, if that makes sense. So I've swapped them around on the connector. I'm just going to do the same on the other side, just in case I unplug it and decide to plug it into the lower ports. So the way I'm going to do that is just, yeah, I can just grab, this is where having nails, I need to cut them, but having nails can help. Just carefully lift the plastic flap as you pull the wire. You can see the white one's out. I'm just going to swap it around with the green. So there's no real risk in doing this. I mean, there would be if you, I mean, this would be an issue if you're ever going to use this in a PC case again, because obviously you'd get confused when your USB port's not working. What we're not doing here is swapping the 5 volts and the ground. I wouldn't be doing that. If I'd messed that up, I would be rewiring it just to be on the safe side. There we go, that's the green out, I think. So just carefully pull the green out, push the green. And we'll push the green back into the other one where the white was, push it all the way along, and put the white where the green was. And as I say, I'm only doing this on this port here just so these are both consistent. And then you just typically need to make sure they push right in and just flatten the bits of plastic down there. You wouldn't want to do that more than once or twice because it will break. But that's it. So this does work now. So I'm going to mount this on the back there, tuck the wires away on the inside, and give it a try. So just like we had to do on the Rev 4 board, there are a number of modifications that Commodore recommended to do to this Rev 6's, and there are 4 or 5, maybe 6 things I've got to do to this. Now the resistor packs I've got, they're not the correct size. I've got another 9-pin one here and I need a 10-pin one. But I'll just do the same thing. I'll put a resistor, you know, for the last one there on the underside, 3K7, and just encapsulate in some heat shrink tubing. These 3 resistors here need swapping out. I think the 330 ohms, orange, brown, and they need swapping out with 680 ohm resistors. So I'll do those as well in a sec. But I'm getting near the end now. Once I've done this one, I think there's only one more mod I need to do to this. And the reason you need to do those is to, you know, stabilise the machine, really, to stabilise some of the signals, improve them. You know, like for example, this pull down here, here's 3K7. I think the one that's on there was something like 1K. I could be wrong. I'll check that in a sec. So you know, they're just corrections and things, and some of the accelerator cards and things that plug into here don't work very well, or don't work at all without doing these mods. So lots of progress here. I'm still waiting for one resistor pack. I don't think that's causing my problem, but long story. I had some issues with the Terrible Fire 534. It turns out it's a prototype. You know, well, not a prototype. It was just one of the earlier versions. It was version 2, but nevertheless, it was a version that I think Stephen didn't want anyone to sell, and he'd passed it over to 8-Bit Dreams. But 8-Bit Dreams was trying to do me a favour. It just created a huge problem when I started asking questions because I couldn't get it working. The good news is I updated the firmware on it. I'll show you how to do that. It does work, and it is rock solid stable on this board. 50 megahertz coprocessor. It works sweet. But the ZRAM 8 meg board I've got, it's not detected. There's some sort of Zorro conflict, or I don't know, a bug maybe in the. I mean, Stephen has said clearly he's tested it on all this hardware there, lots of memory cards and things, and it works fine. And I totally believe him. But I think that there is some sort of glitch or bug or something that might have been overlooked, or it could be the ZRAM board. This is the thing, it could be the ZRAM board. But if you look at the information about the ZRAM board, it does say that it absolutely meets the auto config specification and the PIC requirements, configuration, etc. And they've tested it on an awful lot of configurations as well. So what I might do at some point, I'm trying to get the ICE, you know, the development environment set up there for the TF stuff, you know, Terrible Fire stuff, the Xilinx stuff, and I'll have a go at trying to revert the Zorro part to the previous bit, because I've got Stephen obviously published the source code for that under the GPL, so it's fantastic that he's done that. If I could just revert that little bit of the Zorro 2 stuff, it might work, I don't know. I'm not really smart enough, and I haven't got the right logic analyzer here to be able to do anything meaningful, because the number of address bits and data bits, I can't do it. I can't do it with my equipment. It's impossible. So it's just going to be a bit of guesswork. But the source code is there, and what I do know is I've reverted to an older version with the older Zorro code. It detects the card fine, and it works. You know, the memory works fine. The only issue there is, I forgot what the issue was now. Yeah, some of the LucasArts games don't work, but that was a fix that Stephen did later as he refactored some of the code, including the Zorro 2 stuff. So you never know, it might not work with the older Zorro 2 stuff, but I can only have a go. It might be a separate video, that, but anyway, I'll show you some of this stuff within this video. But in the meantime, I purchased this from the chap that sells Boobip stuff, Chris. So this is fantastic. This was produced by a French guy, I think, over on Amiga. I'll stick his name up there because I'm useless at remembering names, and I'll stick a link down below. He's produced another version of this recently, Red PCB. It's laid out subtly differently, but the way this works is, you can see here, is you know, you've got the pin header things. You need to remove the existing socket and fit it there. It goes that way around, so physically it will fit on there. I'm not sure, like the idea of just soldering this directly on, because, and it wouldn't be a problem if this board was just a little bit wider and had both the RAM chips on this side here. I wouldn't hesitate in doing that, because if any of these failed, I just use some hot air to get them off. But this one here, you know, if that ever fails, it's going to be an absolute pain, isn't it? You're going to have to remove the socket, and you know, they're pretty thick pins there. It could be quite difficult to do. So I'm going to go see if I've got any sockets that will accommodate this, and I might just fit, not really a socket, but you know, like pin header, strips of pin header, and see if I can do that. I don't know. I mean, I might just solder it on and go for it. But so the next thing I'm going to do is obviously get the PLCC extractor, remove the 8372A here. I'll use this to upgrade the other 2000 boards you've seen in a previous repair video there. So that'll have one Megachip, and yeah, remove the socket. So I've removed the chip. Let's have a go at desoldering this. I don't envisage this being easy, but it might be. I mean, the solder's coming away fairly easy here, so maybe it'll be alright. No, that one hasn't. So I need to unblock the desolder station, but while I'm waiting for that, I thought I'll just reinvestigate a way, because yeah, I couldn't find a way of mounting this socket. Because what I want is this is ideal, but there's just no clearance there. But then I thought, well, actually, you know, you can see where he's cut this and trimmed this down. I could literally just prise or cut this piece of plastic off, fit strips of this, because I'll show you, if I got, hang on, where's it gone now? Yeah, I've got the same size pins here, can you see? These are, they're not quite exactly the same, but I think they're almost the same. So if I just push some of this in here, you'll see they go in a fair distance, enough, I think. So I think if I get rid of this red piece of plastic, fit strips of this onto here in advance to hold it in position, fit that over the you know, onto the board there, and solder this in place. You know, we'll have a socket, obviously be on the other side, but strips of this here, like that. It just means I'll be able to unplug this if I need to you know, replace the RAM. I could do with just pulling this off here now, just to see if I can, you know, it's going to be dangerous doing this, because obviously pins are going to be floating all over the place, but if I then stick some of this on to hold it as a solder, it should be okay. Yeah, so you can see what I did there. I just carefully put the needle nose pliers here and just prised it a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. It took me a few minutes to get that off, but it gradually just slid over there. And this was just so that I could test with this, you know, so we get a piece of this onto the pins there, slides in nicely, and it's a nice tight fit. So that's the approach I'm going to go with, I think. So with a bit of craft work there, you know, a knife, you can see these sides here are not very straight, but they're going to be on the underside anyway. Yeah, I've managed to cut that pieces down to size there, and it's pretty straight. I think it'll go on, so I just need to finish removing the chip. So that came off a lot easier than expected. I did the usual thing underneath of just, you know, grabbing 2 or 3 pins and just pivot a little bit and move along, pivot, move along, pivot. You know, you've seen me do that on lots of videos. And then the final thing, when it was still on there, I could feel it wobbling, and I wobbled it backwards and forwards, left and right. I could hear it, the pins clicking and squeaking and snapping off. And then I just thought, well, let's just try and lift it, and it just came straight off. No issues at all. So there's a bit of solder there needs removing, but it's okay. So I think we can have a go at fitting this now. I just hope all the pins line up okay, and I hope they go through the board. I hope they're long enough. It took me a few attempts there to get it perfectly aligned, you know, so that all the pins were the same height and all that sort of stuff, because there was one row that seemed to be, I don't know, sinking down, despite the fact that the sockets are pushed all the way in as far as they can go to the pins. So yeah, after about the 3rd attempt, it's gone on there. So I just need to solder the solder points now. I'm going to just carefully do some diagonal opposites, and then I'll inspect it just to make sure it looks nice and straight from the other side, which it does. So quickly testing it before I clean up and then reassemble. You know, the board is just sort of supported off the floor, loosely connected up with the bare essentials here. Well, I say the bare essentials, I do have the TF534 in here now. As you can see, that's why we've got the 4 meg of fast RAM, and it is true fast RAM actually. But the main thing is, can you see here, 2 meg? So yeah, I'll use sys in a minute to test the RAM and stuff, but yeah, it's showing 2 meg of chip, and the main thing is it's booted up, so the work I have done there is okay. So all cleaned up there now, really tidy. One thing I have done is, you can just see a couple of little bits of nail polish here and some tiny little bits, just where a bit of the solder mask has come off. Not a lot, we're talking like just like, I don't know, 0.5 millimeters worth, you know, of copper. You could just see it. So rather than trying to tin over it and stuff and just make a mess, I thought I'll just, you know, just carefully just cover those 3 or 4, well I think it might be 5 or 6 little bits of copper there with a bit of nail polish. So the next thing we're going to do is just shrink the heat shrink tubing on that resistor there. That was one that I needed because my resistor array was only 9 pin. I just couldn't source any 10 pin ones. I'm sure if I looked long enough I could find some 10 pin resistor arrays, but you know what, it's not a big deal, it's just sticking one extra resistor on there for that 10th resistor. So the interesting thing with this Z-Labs, or whatever it is, Z-RAM board here, as you can see, it's working on the Rev 4 Amiga here, but this is without the TF534. If I plug the TF534 in, then it does exactly the same as it does on the Rev 6, where it says, you know, there's an issue with the board. It says it's faulty or something. The screen comes up in red there, and it lists the 3 expansion boards there. I think the 2 of them come from the terrible fire, and the 3rd one is obviously this. And this is the one that's you know, malfunctioning or not working. But it does work, as you can see here in the Rev 4. On its own without the TF534. The interesting thing is, it did originally work in the Rev 6 board before I started to do the compatibility mods, you know, the mods that were suggested by Commodore. I think it came from Dave Haney, one of the posts he'd done. You know, it's a list of modifications you should do to Rev 6. So the interesting thing there, like I say, with the Rev 6 mods without the TF534, this comes up with an error, with regardless of, you know, you don't even have the 534 on there, just with a straight 68,000. So yeah, I'm not convinced these new Z-RAM boards are much good actually. I'm inclined to consider sending it back to the manufacturer and say, look, there's an issue with this, it doesn't work on a modded Rev 6 motherboard, please explain, and see what they can do. Yeah, there you go. So that's testing the 534 and the Z-RAM board at the same time, and it is come up as defective on the Rev 4 board. Super annoying. It's even more annoying, as I say, that if I now put this in the Rev 6 board without the TF534, it doesn't work in there at all either, it's defective. But on this board without the TF534, it's not defective. So yeah, I'm going to contact the manufacturer, I think. I killed my TF534. And how I did that, I connected up one of those cheap Chinese SD to IDE interfaces. Now, I don't think I had it the wrong way around. I'm pretty sure I had it the right way with respect to pin 1, but it was just doing nothing. It wasn't even coming up with it wasn't even booting from floppy. Connected up a compact flash card, and that wasn't working either. So yeah, you've been warned. Some of those cheap IDE adapters can kill these. I mean, certainly if you got it the wrong way around, but I'm pretty sure I had it the right way around. To start with, I thought I'd connected it the wrong way, but then I checked. It's funny, it was one of those things, you know, when you get an instinct before you do something, and it was kind of like late at night. I thought, oh, I should really wait till the daylight until I can see what I'm doing properly, you know, I've got better light here. But it was connected up right. I left it all connected as it was, checked it in the morning, tried the compact flash, wasn't working. But yeah, the cable wasn't the issue. But I suspect if you got the cable around the wrong way, you could damage it, you know, either with the compact flash adapter or the SD adapter there. Anyway, we'll just heat this up, remove this. I've ordered one of these from Farnell. Hopefully I've ordered the right chip. And I think it's this one. I can't be 100% sure. I've looked at the schematics and I see some of the IDE control signals coming from here, because I figure if there was something wrong with the bus, you know, the main bus CPLD. Is this the bus one? This might be the bus one. The other one up there, the other one has obviously got a lot more connections on it. And it relates to the RAM and stuff as well. And I think you know, if you think about the compact flash the way it's read, the data bus is going to go through there, and the address bus is going to be probably a few pins connected to it, I would think. So you would expect other problems with the card, but I did find that if you completely disconnect the card from this, you know, unplug it, then after about 20 or 30 seconds it does boot from floppy. So it's not like the accelerator itself has died, it's the interface, you know, to the compact flash, the Ide port there. So super annoying. I did try reflashing the firmware, and that didn't make any difference. It flashed okay there. So it's going to be one of the pins, you know, one of the output pins, well, I/O pins, has now got a fault. Anyway, it's going to take me some time to get this up to temperature, I think. Yeah, there we go. So hopefully no board damage. It doesn't look like there's any board damage to me. Just sort of lob that off. I mean, technically that is still working, but only, let's say, one or two of the pins don't work. And I think it's going to be like the IDE, I don't know, control signals, int, there's an int pin or two on there, and a ready pin. So it's going to be those that are the issue, I think. Well, I've got to show you this packaging. There's one of the chips, can you see? It was inside this massive carrier frame thing here that's designed to, you know, this is probably what they all come in from the factory. Inside a special bag like that. I thought, oh my god, they've sent me, you know, a whole load of these instead of just one, but no, they've sent that in that giant box, and here's the other one chip. It's just hard to believe, seriously hard to believe. So sadly I lost some footage. I have hunted high and low for it, I can't find it anywhere, and there was quite a bit, so I'm recovering the stuff that I lost towards the end of this video here. So I refitted the replacements, well, not refitted, soldered the new chip on there. You can see we lost a little bit of the solder mask, can you see that? Just there, you know, it's solder coated just on one side, but it went on okay. I'll post a link down in the description below for when I did the TF534 build. I'll just give you an idea of how to get chips like this back onto a board like this. It's pretty fine pitch, but you know what, it was pretty easy. It only took a minute to get it back on there. And then reprogrammed it up again. I've shown you how to do that on the TF530 assembly video there, the build of that board there that I did a giveaway of. So after having swapped that out, this is working perfect again. It was booting from the IDE, no problems at all. And it was absolutely 100% a fault. There was definitely a fault on that old chip there. And it, as I say, it happened because you see the pin 1 marking here on this cable. I got it around the wrong way. Now, I wasn't using a compact flash adapter at that point. I was trained to use a cheap Chinese SD adapter. And you know what, it might not necessarily be the cable being the wrong way around, maybe that adapter has got a fault, because sometimes you'll have seen them, if you get some of these adapters that are cheap here, certainly in the compact flash ones, the soldering's awful. These ones are pretty good, but sometimes the soldering's awful on them, and that SD adapter doesn't look very clever actually. The solder looks terrible on it. So you've been warned. If you're going to buy one, check the eBay seller's feedback, and you know, try and buy from somebody who's got 100% feedback. Just make sure it looks like you're buying a quality adapter rather than something that could be a piece of junk. So I found that I could just plug the card in here and let the compact flash card just sit here. There's nothing for it to short on, it's plastic here. It can't go anywhere, it can go up and down, but it's pretty secure. So it's important you get the card into, you know, the dip socket here as well, because it can, you know, pull out if you're not careful. So the other thing you can see here is a little 8 meg RAM board. Again, I'll post a link down below to this. So this provides 8 megabytes in the Zorro 2 area. So yeah, it's kind of not ideal that you've got 4 meg of Zorro 3 on the TF534 here, and you're adding some slower 24-bit Zorro 2 RAM, but it does mean that I've got 12 meg of fast RAM, which is really nice. I can run any of this stuff off WHD load now without any issues at all. So I've put a dedicated Kickstart 3.1 ROM in here. Because I've got that keyboard adapter you saw me fit earlier, when you do reset, it does a pulse. It's like a pulse instead of, you know, holding it in reset while you're holding the keys down and then releasing reset. It doesn't happen like that. It's like as soon as you press Control Alt Delete, it goes pulse. That's it. You just get pulse for a short period of time, which means that ROM switches that work off the reset won't work properly. So yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. But you can see the 2 meg Agnus here. I've got a heat sink on top of Agnus. There's enough clearance here. There's a few millimeters, you know, above that before the metal work, you know, fits above it. The Agnus gets the hottest in any of these systems, but also Buster. I don't know, you can spot over there. I've got heat sink on Buster as well. So we've got our Ide port here for the keyboard, and we've got a spare socket on there, you know, going to the other connector should we get any other USB devices in future. And as you can see, I've used these little clips here to hold on, and each one's got a little thing written on it, so that, you know, it says like Gary pin 36, so it's going to pin 36. Pin 1 is the one nearest the, you got the notch here on the left hand side, that's pin 1, so you count that way around, like that. Incidentally, that's the one that comes from the Megachip. Yeah, the reset, you can pick it up in a few different places. You know, the keyboard reset wire I've got coming down here, originally I think it was like pin 5 of Gary. Well, there's a resistor over here that's got a joint to that as well, so I've got that stuck there for the moment. The other thing you need to do when you fit in one of these, and again, I've lost the footage, so I can't honestly remember exactly what it was I covered, but there's you need to attach a wire. So I've soldered it down, I'll show you in a minute, up on the left there, and stuck a little pin header connector on it so that I can slide it on there so it's detachable, and that's just to do with auto config. I forget what it is, that wire. I'll post the links down below to this memory expansion, and you'll find the information there. Something to do with auto config, the chain between the different slots or something. I don't know. If you've not got that there, it doesn't work properly. But the way this is working now is everything is coexisting really happily, and we've got 14 meg. We've got 2 megabytes of chip RAM, 8 megabytes Zorro 2 and 4 megabytes in the Zorro 3 space there. And incidentally, you can use this with a 500 or a 500 plus. This is what this is aimed at here, actually, because in fact, you could use this on here if I didn't have the 534. You just stick the 68,000 on top of that now. You can see it's got a socket, but it's also got pins below, you know, so this sits in between your processor, your 68,000 processor, and the socket. So yeah, that's a really good mod for a 500 or a 500 plus if you've not got an accelerator board. You know, you can stick one of these in there, and you know, you've got 8 meg of fast RAM. So as you can see, we've all booted up there. We've got 12 meg of fast RAM in total, 4 meg of Zorro 3 and 8 meg of Zorro 2, and 2 meg of graphics RAM. So we'll run a benchmark on it. That'd be a good idea. So you can see CPU type there, 68030, FPU 6882. I'll upload a video on those actually shortly, because I had some issues getting a proper FPU that would work with this. MMU type 68030, because we've got the full 68030 there, not the cut down version. And as you can see on the bottom left there, CPU clock 50 MHz, FPU clock 50 MHz. This thing shifts. This is really, really fast. I love this machine now. Thank you to Stephen Leary and especially 8-Bit Dreams for sending this to me at no cost at all. It was an amazing donation. As I say, I was ready to buy it at the time, and he said, no worries, I'll send you one. I've got one here you can have, don't worry about it. You can see the performance there. Look at that, that is crazy fast compared to an A4040. Yeah, so that's not an ideal test, because as you can see, it's the left hand side of the A4000 there. It's the A3000 running at 25, so that's got a 68030. Memory is faster than on the 040 anyway. From what I understand, there's some sort of bottleneck there on the 040 in terms of RAM. It's not as fast. I think that's why most people tend to want to go for the 060 processor. But we can do, I don't know, a dry stone test. Let's just run that. And other benchmarks are going to come up similarly here. And you can see there an A4040 is definitely faster, you know, in terms of its raw, you know, performance. So looking at that, you can see this is twice as fast as an A3025, which is to be expected because that's running at 25 megahertz. We're running at 50, so you're going to get, you know, 100% performance increase there. It's not quite as fast as an A4040 in terms of the compute there, you know, in dry stones. So games like this would not load on the 534 to start with. Just turn that up a little bit. It needed a firmware update. That was the initial problem I had with the 534. But the other thing that wasn't working was the RAM. Even this RAM would not work with the TF534 at the same time. The two would not coexist. And that was one of the mods that Commodore recommended. You know, the bulletins there, you know, remove a resistor pack, stick a different size resistor in place of another resistor, etc, etc. Yeah, that was the issue. So when I reverted one of those mods, which I'll show you in a minute, that was when everything started to coexist. This TF534 sits quite nicely with that RAM, no issues whatsoever. The other thing I'll touch on, I'm going to cover it in some of the upcoming videos, is you can get incompatibilities between one card and another. You know, one Zorro card can just not, for whatever reason, not like another Zorro card, or it might depend on the revision of the board that you're on. You know, are you using a Rev 4 board or is it a Rev 6 board? And have you got the mods or have you not got the mods? Because actually, in most of the instances I've found, you get less compatibility when you do certain mods to these boards. You're better off just leaving them stock. That's my recommendation to you after the experiments I've been doing here. Just leave them stock, and if someone has modified it and you can't get something working, just look closely at those list of mods and just see if you can work out if someone has modded it. Just reassembling it, but I thought I'd show you around the back. You know, you can see the USB thing here. Obviously only one of our USB ports is connected at the moment. We could just connect the other one up just to power, so you could charge your phone off it or something like that, I don't know. There might be some other USB device that I can connect up to that port later. And obviously our fan vents on the back there. And you can see I marked this up to say it was repaired this year in a previous video. I was having all sorts of problems with different RAM cards and things not working with the terrible fire, or not working with my 2000 board, or, you know, all sorts of different configuration options where one board would work with another one but not with another one. Between the different motherboard versions here. I upgraded my 6.2, I don't even know whether that's the right way of phrasing actually. I brought the board up to the latest spec in terms of following the, you know, the tech info released by Commodore, you know, technical, I don't know, bulletins or whatever they released every now and again, suggesting to remove various things and to change resistor sizes and resistor pack sizes, etc. So mine was up to like 6.4, and I was finding that, yeah, it worked with a terrible fire, but pretty much nothing else. All the old accelerators wouldn't work, the RAM boards wouldn't work. So it's been annoying me, so I started reverting the changes. You can see here at the moment, this is testing with and working okay with 4 meg fast RAM. And that's coming from the A2630 here and the A20091. You know, it's a SCSI accelerator with 2 meg. Got 2 meg here. This one's got 2 meg on board. And everything works. And that was only after reverting a couple of the changes. So I'm glad I did this because it's shown me that this motherboard is okay. There's nothing wrong with the Zorro side of things, and it is just about the mods that Commodore recommend. Well, yeah, maybe for some of the later Zorro boards, but if you're using older boards like I am here, 2630 and a, you know, 2091, you might not necessarily want to do that. Be very, very careful about what mods you do to these boards. Don't just do what I did, which is to go, you know, take advice. I had a number of people going, well, the reason this isn't working on your board is because you need to do all the mods. That's what it is, you know. Or the reason the terrible fire isn't working with the RAM expansions is you haven't done all the mods. Your board is not up to spec. Well, you know what? I've just proven that actually, if you bring it up to spec, older things do not work on it. So, yeah, so what I've done is I've changed, I think there was some 680 ohm resistors, I've changed to 470s around the CPU there was 3. So those are back to 470s as per my other 6.2 board. Tried that it was a little bit better, but not 100% better. And then there's a resistor pack, which I'll show you in a minute, which suggests to just remove it completely. And I've been worrying about that ever since I removed it, thinking, well, there must be a reason for that being there. Why would you just remove it? So I fitted that again, fitted the old one, and lo and behold, it works. So yeah, be super careful about which mods you do. So it was the little blighter down here. I forget whether it was the front one or the back one, but one of them, in the Commodore data sheets, you know, Commodore, I don't know, monthly bulletins, it tells you to remove one of them. And if you do, you're going to lose compatibility with a number of things. And what I mean is, the A2630 wouldn't work in this board previously, neither would the Supra, neither would the 2091. None of those three boards would work with this motherboard with that resistor pack removed. So all working with a wireless keyboard there, the additional chip RAM, the additional fast RAM, the TF534 and its additional fast RAM, FPU, kickstart 3.1, a fan, USB port on the back for the keyboard, and a new badge. I'm not sure if I missed anything, heat sinks maybe. Now I'm sure you're probably sick of me going on about Patreon, but I would like to thank my Patrons, because without Patreon support this channel would not exist, it wouldn't be able to continue to exist. So I'm super grateful for the support via Patreon, and the donations and things as well, you know, things like the TF534 here from 8-Bit Dreams. Without that support the channel wouldn't be able to continue, and we've lost quite a few patrons over the last week or two related to COVID. On that same subject, please stay safe, try and stay home if you can. You know, wear rubber gloves when you're going out and stuff, be careful what you touch, try and get a mask if you can get a mask, and just try and isolate yourself. And I just wish everybody the best for the future. I'll try and get some more videos up over the next few days. I may do some live streams if there's any interest in that, just gaming related ones. So I might have a play on the Xbox and do a live stream and questions and answers, and maybe play on the C64 or the Amiga or something like that. It might just help take people's minds off things. I don't know about you, but I'm getting pretty stressed with it all actually. I'm sick of TV, can't even watch the news anymore. It's just enough to send you into a downward spiral. Anyway, yeah, keep your chins up, take care, and I'll catch you in the next video.